talk about your pain, can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go. But talk about your pain, can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
All right, let me come on the screen. Hello, beautiful people. If you're watching me on the replay, thank you for watching me. If you're watching me on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston, and my goal, and hi TikTok, my goal is to come on and talk about different issues, and then I make sure we talk about ways to deal with it. I just want to make sure I'm on my mic. I'm on my mic now. We talk about ways to deal with it in these sessions that I do. And today we're talking, last week we talked about your environment and how your environment can affect you. And today we're talking about authenticity. And authenticity is a thing that can affect your mental health if you're not authentic. And I realize, a lot of people don't even realize they're not being authentic to their true self until, they go deeper, when they're starting to think about, like, what is it that I like? What is it that I don't like? When you start asking yourself all these questions, you start realizing you're in environments that may not be supportive of you, or may not be the environment that you really want to be in. You're in it because that's what your mom wanted you to do, or because that's the environment you grew up in, but realizing that's not my true self. First, let's just kind of think about, like, what is authentic self. And so when you think about your authentic self, it's being true to your personality, your values, and spirit, regardless of the pressure that you're under to act otherwise. And then also you're honest with yourself and with others, and you take responsibility for your mistakes. And so when you're being able to be your authentic self, being able to be true to who you are, and the whole pressure thing is something that prevents people from being authentic. Another thing that prevents people from being authentic is not wanting to feel lonely, because let's face it, regardless of if you are with people that may not be the best for you, there's still somebody there. And when people are being honest with themselves, they will realize that they do struggle with being alone or not having somebody there. So being able to be true to your authentic self really requires you to do it, even when you feel like you're under pressure, even if it's something that everyone else is doing that you may not want to do. But what causes the lack of authenticity when you think about being authentic? And because it is good for your mental health to be authentic, but then it doesn't happen, unfortunately. And so when you think about that, like, what causes the lack of authenticity? And so people struggle with being authentic because of their self-esteem or their fear of judgment by others. And of course, people want to feel liked and loved by people. And then it also says, like, past experiences from childhood led to being shut down when we spoke our truth can easily be mistakenly teach us that it isn't safe to be genuine. This one is huge. So when people aren't being authentic, I would say it's not that you were intentionally trying to hide your true self. You learned how to try to hide your true self because of the lack of support you may have gotten, because of being shut down when you were trying to be authentic. There's some people that they're going to be authentic whether it's safe or not. They're going to be their true selves, whether, especially kids. When I think about kids and how they sometimes push back, and in the moment, it's like hard for parents, but then I'll say, it sounds like they're not going to take nothing from nobody. They're going to stand on business. They're going to stand on their values, which is something that is lacking, where people are not standing on their values or standing on what they believe. So when you mask who you are, because masking takes place a lot. I know a lot of people hear about it from work. People have to mask who they are at work. But when you're masking who you are all the time, there's some heavy ramifications that take place that you may not be aware of. And I think when you hear it, as you're trying to like be your authentic self, be who you truly want to be, um, you can hold on to like the effects to help you stand firm on your goal of living out the life that you want to live. So, masking your true self can have a lot of negative impacts. So, you can emotionally be exhausted, constantly regulating your behavior can be mentally and emotionally draining. It leads to fatigue and exhaustion throughout your life, right? So, the first effect of what can happen when you mask who you are is that you're emotionally exhausted. I think about literally putting on a mask. Like if you think about going to a masquerade party or putting on a mask, and it's sweaty under the mask, right? But it's a party, you have the mask on. Imagine always keeping the mask on, like literally all day. You're not at a party, you're just like, you're masking everything about you. And when you get home, you're exhausted because you're being somebody that you're not. So that's the first thing, is that it can lead you into emotional exhaustion. The second thing is that isolation. So, fear of being misunderstood or exposed can lead to social withdrawal and isolation. This can lead to other consequences such as low self esteem, lack of trust, and feeling lonely. And when you think about the isolation piece and the social anxiety that sometimes people may feel, of course, you're going to feel anxious if you're in an environment that is not the best for you. I get that social anxiety is a thing in and of itself, where some people may have social anxiety, even if they're in an environment that they want to be in. But also, I think that it's important to recognize that sometimes the anxiety could be coming from the fact that you really don't want to do that. You feel like you have to, or you feel like you're supposed to do that. So, really being mindful of that, and being misunderstood, right? The last thing, and this isn't the only list, but these are like the three top things that I could think of. But impaired self-awareness and self-acceptance. This is bad. Like if your self-awareness and acceptance of yourself is impaired, so masking can make it difficult to establish authentic relationships. It can also lead to disassociation, where you become detached from your own thoughts, feelings, and impulses. Being um, not attached to your own feelings, your own emotions, your own needs. How are you able to live life when that's the case, right? If you are with yourself all the time, we're gonna have emotions, we're gonna have feelings, right? These things are gonna happen, and if you are always not able to be your authentic self, how are you gonna know what you need? I always tell people, like, you're the best person to understand when things go wrong or when things happen or what you need, because you're always with yourself. But because for so long, so many people may have had to mask who they really were, they really don't understand what they need. They don't understand their emotions, or understand the things that they may be struggling with. So when you are masking, right? When you're thinking about this stuff, um, I really want you to really think about how not being true to who you are can affect you from living life. Surviving life, if you're still here, you've been surviving, right? We've learned how to survive, but living life does require authenticity and embracing vulnerability. So vulnerability is another one that you have to think about, because if you're going to be authentic to who you are, you're going to have to work on being vulnerable. And so, what does embracing vulnerability mean? So, embracing vulnerability involves acknowledging and accepting your own limitations and imperfections. We all have them. Like, I am not good at everything that I do. Literally, there's so many things that I can name. There's more things that I'm not good at than I am good at. But I'm big on naming the things I'm good at, and then the things I can't do, I'm acknowledging it, right? So you got to be able to acknowledge the things that you realize like you can't do. It also requires us to confront our fears, our insecurities, and our mistakes. Your ego doesn't want you to do that. Your ego doesn't want you to acknowledge your mistakes or the things that didn't go well, right? So being mindful of that, when you're able to embrace vulnerability, you are acknowledging the things that you're not good at, your limitations, your insecurities, your mistakes. When you're able to do that, you can cultivate self-awareness and learn to embrace like who you really are, right? That's and so important. If you can learn how to embrace who you really are, then you'll find yourself being able to actually like understand your emotions, understand what you need, be in spaces that work for you, right? That are healthy for you. In order to do that, right? So I talked about like the authenticity and why it's important, why we struggle with authenticity. But if you want to work on developing an authentic life, you got to be able to be vulnerable with yourself. I would say it's not about me going out to the world, even though I have this platform and I do this. That's not what allows me to be authentic because I'm sharing with you all. But if I'm not honest, I need to be honest with myself. I need to be able to be vulnerable with myself. So it's really about like, how can I work on being vulnerable with myself? And as you're trying to cultivate this environment, right? Because I'm moving into like solutions for you to think about how do I work on cultivating this, taking an inventory of like the settings that you're in, even if it's work, even if it's your family, right? And recognizing the areas that you struggle in. But also, if you want to invite more authenticity in your life and you're realizing there's certain areas of interest that you have, there's always online meetups, there's in-person meetups, right? There's a website called meetup.com. There's Eventbrite where you can see what events are happening around you. There's YouTube, right? YouTube has, whatever you're trying to do, you're trying to learn how to do makeup, you're trying to learn how to study for your tests, you can find it on there. You can find your tribe, right? So if you're trying to work on developing a system that is, or more authentic self that aligns with the direction you're going, start to dip into some of those spaces, right? And even if you're not ready to dip into those spaces in person, you can work on doing it online. There's so many blogs where people have written things about the area of struggle or the area that you're trying to work on being more authentic in. And then the last thing I want to say, as you're working on trying to be authentic, is really practicing self-compassion and acceptance and grace, right? Those three things are things that people don't do well. We beat ourselves up for how we are not or how we are, and not realize that we had to be that way out of survival mode. We had to assimilate. A lot of people have had to assimilate because if they didn't as a child, it meant being in trouble, right? So, and as you assimilate it, you lost who you really are. Like you're not at your true self. So as you're trying to get to your true self and understanding who you really are, you really have to work on having self-compassion for yourself. You really have to work on acceptance and even grieving, right? Sometimes grieving comes into play because you have to grieve the life that you didn't have once you realize that, man, I haven't been living my true self. I realized like I dress like these people. This is not how I want to dress. I realized that I'm doing these extracurricular activities that like, this is not what I really want to do. And so as you're trying to shy out of those environments, it's going to be a grieving process because you will lose some people along the way, right? That's just the reality of change. That's the reality of growth, is that it can come with loss. And I think that's why people stop being authentic, stop embracing their true selves, is because it can feel like a lonely journey. But that's when you start to implement and work on having a tribe, for getting the audience or the people in your life that's going to work for you. I promise you, they're out there. There's someone, there's a tribe out there for you. It may take time to find, but you'll never find it if you are staying put, even if you don't feel like you belong, right? So making sure you go where you belong, right? It'll feel more better. You'll feel more authentic. the quantity may look different and the people that you have, but having that quality, like you can't beat quality. I say quality over quantity all day. So thank you all so much for listening. So quick recap, there's so much power in authenticity. If you can work on being authentic and being true to who you really are, I promise you that you will find peace. There's peace in being authentic. Also, really quick, I started a practice. And if you go to shiftingthewayouthink.com, you can learn more about it. I'm really excited about it. It's something that I wanted to do years ago, and I'm doing it now. So learn more about me at celestetherapist.com, and then you can learn more about my practice if you go to shiftingthewayouthink.com. All right, I'll talk to you all later.